Section 3.2, Parallel Lines and Transversals. In this section, we're going to take what we learned in the last section and say, what if a transversal crosses two parallel lines? Well, if two parallel lines have a transversal cutting across them, then turns out corresponding angles are congruent. Alternate interior angles are congruent. Alternate exterior angles are congruent. All vertical angles are congruent. We learned that in chapter 1. And consecutive or same-side interior angles are supplementary. So are linear pairs. We have linear pairs here too. We can't forget that. Linear pairs are also supplementary, which means adds up to 180. So here we go. The measure of the three numbered angles, the measure of three of the numbered angles is 125 degrees. Identify the angles. Explain your reasoning. Well, look. This angle right here is 125. We learned that alternate interior angles are congruent. So angle 5 is also going to be equal to 125. Why? Because those are alternate interior angles. Well, what about angle 7? Angle 7 is also going to be 125 degrees because that is a corresponding angle with the 125 degree angle that I was given. And then angle 1 is also going to be 125 degrees because that forms a vertical angle with angle 125. Please pause the video and copy down the next two examples. I would like you to try them on your own, and then unpause the video when you're ready to see the answers. Example 2, if measure of angle 1 is 105, find all the angles. Okay, well, here we go. If this is 105, 8 is also going to be 105 because they are alternate exterior angles. So is 5 because they are corresponding angles. And number 4 is also going to be 105 because it forms a vertical angle with angle 1. Now, angles 1 and 2 form a linear pair. 1 and 2 form a linear pair, so to figure out angle 2, just do 180 minus the 105, and you get that that's 75 degrees. Well, hey, angles 2 and 7 are alternate interior angles, so they are congruent. Angles 2 and 6 are corresponding angles, so they are congruent. And angles 2 and 3 are vertical angles, so they are going to be congruent as well. Find the value of x. Well, first things first. Again, we're allowed to use these rules when we have parallel lines. That's the key thing here. Hey, here's my transversal. This is the interior, and these are exterior. So, hey, both of these are on the exterior and opposite sides of the transversal. That means they're alternate exterior angles, which means they are congruent, which means they have the same measure. So the 3x minus 4 is going to equal that 113. Add 4 to both sides. You get 3x equals 117. Divide both sides by 3, and you get x equals 39. Please pause the video now, copy down the next 3 problems, and when you're ready for the answers, unpause. Find the value of x. Okay. Now, you might look at these and say, hey, this is not one of my angle pairs. They're not corresponding, they're not alternate exterior, they're none of them. Well, let's think about this. If these are parallel lines, if this angle here is 78, so is this one. So now I can use the fact that they form a linear pair and say, hey, the one angle, 3x plus 33, plus the other angle, 78, has to equal 180 because they are a linear pair. Combine your like terms, 33 and 78, you'll get 3x plus 111 equals 180. Subtract 111 from both sides, you get 3x equals 69. Divide both sides by 3, and x is going to equal 23. Find the values of x and y. This one might be a little tricky looking, but let's take a look at x. So I'm going to have to use two different lines here. So obviously, here's my parallel lines. But first, for x, I'm going to consider this as my transversal. That 4x and the 52 form alternate interior angles. So the 4x is going to equal 52. So you divide both sides by 4, and you get x equals 13. So, next thing, well, we need to do a little bit of thinking outside the box here. Ready? So for y, I have this down here is 90 degrees. And this is now my transversal that I'm going to use. So, let me try to highlight that again. So if this is 90, this is same side interior. And that also has to be 90. How did I figure out that's 90? I know they're not normally congruent, but they're supplementary, right? So if the bottom one is 90, the top one also has to be 90 because they have to add up to 180. So that box is 90. So the 4x and the 3y plus 2 has to equal 90. Well, we just figured out that x in the last part of the problem, when we first figured out x using alternate interior angles, we said, hey, x is 13, so I can plug it in and multiply it by 4. And you would get 52 plus 3y plus 2 equals 90. Again, I just substituted x because in the last part, I figured out what x was. I'm going to continue this equation over here because I'm out of room. Combine your 52 and 2. You get 3y plus 54 equals 90. Subtract 54 from both sides. You get 3y is 36. Divide both sides by 3, and you get y equals 12. Find the values of x and y. Well, first things first, x is going to be 45 because, hey, if I'm using that as my parallel line and that as my transversal, I have alternate interior angles. However, with y, I'm still going to use the same parallel lines, but this is now my transversal. Hey, I have corresponding angles, so y is going to equal 85 because we have corresponding angles.